Greetings, wayward souls. An ancient library, a strange archivist, and a ritualistic exchange of ashes for memory. Light your lanterns, listen closely, and remember, a memory lasts a lifetime. I found the library by accident, or so I told myself. The map I had found was old, drawn in rust-coloured ink, folded into the lining of my brother's coat. I followed it past the edge of Heathden's village, where the moor begins to rot and the fog thickens like breath on glass. No one had spoken of the place, not even in whispers, but the ink had bled through the paper like it wanted to be found. The gates were wrought iron, twisted into shapes that were suggestive of vines, but felt more like veins inching beneath the skin. They opened without any resistance, though I never touched them. Beyond them lay a garden of pale thistles and bone-white trees, their bark peeling in scrolls like forgotten parchment. The path was gravel, but the stones were black and sharp, as if they'd been burned and cooled rapidly. The building itself was once a stately manor, I think. Its windows were now bricked over, its roof sagging like a tired sigh. Ivy clung to every surface, but not the lush, thick green kind. This ivy was grey, brittle, and smelled faintly, yet distinctively, of ash. A single heavy oak door waited at the top of 3 broken steps, carved with symbols I didn't recognise. Not runes or letters, just impressions like something cast into the wood. I knocked once. The sound didn't echo as I was expecting. It was swallowed. There he stood in the doorway, before I could think to knock again. The archivist. Tall, but not imposing. His coat threadbare. His eyes pale. Not white, but the colour of old paper. And his hands were stained with ink that never dries. He didn't speak. He simply turned and walked into the gloom that lurked behind him, expecting me to follow. Once inside, the air was thick with dust, like burnt flowers and caramel. The shelves rose impossibly high, vanishing into shadow beyond eyeline. No lamps or candles illuminated my path, and yet I could see. The books were bound in strange materials, bark, cloth, bone. Some had no titles at all, and others had too many to speak of. He led me to a solid desk carved from petrified wood. Upon it sat a scale, a quill, and a jar filled with something grey and granular. Only then did he speak. What remains? I held out the urn, my brother's ashes. He nodded once. The trade had begun. He took the urn from me with both hands, as if it were fragile, sacred. Not once did he ask the name. Not once did he ask the cause. The archivist does not traffic in stories, only remains. He poured the ashes into the jar beside the scale. The grains fell softly like snow, each flake a memory, a stolen moment, an anticipated breath. When the jar was full, he sealed it with wax the colour of ravens. He moved like he knew exactly where to go. No hesitation, no searching. His fingers brushed spines that pulsed faintly as if alive and responding to his touch. He selected one without a title, bound in something that looked like a cross between skin and velvet. He returned and placed it before me. The cover bore no name, but when I touched it, I felt its warmth and heard my brother's voice, "This book is yours now," the archivist said. "It will read you as you read it." I opened it. The pages were blank. And then slowly, words began to appear, written in an ink that bled from the edges inwards, forming sentences that curled like cigarette smoke. First line read, "He saw the thing in the mirror before it saw him." I turned the page. More writing. A memory I didn't know I had. My brother, aged 9, staring into the attic mirror, whispering to something I couldn't see. The book was remembering for me. I looked up and the archivist was watching, but not with curiosity, with pity. "You may take it," he said, "but it will not remain unchanged." I asked what that meant. He didn't answer me. He simply turned and vanished into the stacks, leaving me alone with the book and the weight of what I'd traded. I stayed at the desk long after he vanished, the book pulsing faintly beneath my hands, warm and rhythmic like a heartbeat. I turned to another page, my brother's handwriting, a letter he'd never sent. Apologies, confession, a drawing of something with too many eyes. The ink bled into my fingertips. I felt it move beneath my skin. "You must not read it all at once," said the archivist, reappearing without sound. "It will take what it needs." I asked him what the ashes paid for. He gestured to the jar, now sealed and stored among hundreds of others. "Memory is currency," he said. "Ashes are distilled truth. The more potent the grief, the deeper the book will reach." I asked if the book would tell me how my brother died. He shook his head. "It will show you what he saw, what he feared, what he became." I asked if I could return it when I was done. "You won't be," he said, "and it won't let you." He handed me a slip of paper, thin, brittle, marked with a symbol that looked like a closed eye. "This is your sigil. It binds the book to you. If you lose it, the book will forget you, and it will begin again." I folded the paper and placed it in my pocket. The book shivered beneath my touch. "You may leave," he said, "but you will return. They always do." I waited until nightfall to open the book again. I lit no candles. The book didn't need light. It glowed like embers beneath skin. I placed the sigil beside it, just as the archivist had instructed, and the closed eye stared up at me. The first page was no longer blank. It held a memory I couldn't place. My brother, aged 12, standing in the cellar with a jar of moths. He whispered to them, and they listened. The ink moved as I read, curling into shapes that pulsed and shimmered. I turned the page. A drawing. The attic mirror, but cracked at the edges, reflecting something that wasn't there, and beneath it, a single line. "He fed it names." I felt dizzy. The room tilted, the air thickened. I turned another page, my brother's voice written in ink. "It comes when you forget what you buried." I remembered the box beneath the floorboards, his journals, his sketches, the ones I never dared to read. I had buried them after the funeral, afraid of what they might reveal. And the book knew. We turned another page, and another. The ink bled faster now, forming images that flickered like film. My brother, older, staring in the mirror, whispering to something behind him. The moths, all dead, arranged in spirals on the cellar floor. A figure in the garden, cloaked in ivy, holding a book that dripped with ash. I tried to stop, but my hands wouldn't obey. The book just turned itself. And the next page held my name. But not written, it was etched. Beneath it, a sentence. She buried the truth in silence. The ink seeped into my skin again, colder this time. I felt it in my veins. I saw my brother's eyes in the mirror. Not frightened, just changed. I slammed the book shut. The sigil flared briefly and then dimmed, and the closed eye bled ink. I tried to stand. My legs failed. The room spun, the book pulsed, and a single whisper. You're next. I didn't sleep. I watched the book all night, but it never moved. But I knew it was still reading me. 3 days had passed, and I didn't open the book again. I didn't need to. I knew it had begun. The ink beneath my skin moved, and I could feel it curling through my veins like vines blooming in my fingertips. My reflection blurred, my voice echoed when I spoke, even when I was alone. I tried to write in my journal, and the pen refused. The ink just pulled in symbols I didn't recognise. Closed eyes, spirals, moths. I wore gloves to hide the stains, but they just spread. My palms darkened more and more each day. My nails turned black. People stared at me like I had leprosy. And I stopped leaving the house. At night I dreamed of the library. The archivist stood among the shelves watching me, and behind him the jars of ash whispering, and my brother's voice among them calling my name. I woke to find hello. My mouth tasted of paper. I tried to burn the book, but it didn't catch. The flames recoiled as if afraid. The closed eye opened just once, and I saw a mirror. My brother, myself, and something behind us both. I screamed, but the sound didn't leave the room. It just folded inward like a page turned too fast. I called the archivist. No answer. I returned to the library, but the gates were locked. The ivy had grown thicker, and the symbols on the door had changed. I knocked and knocked. Nothing. I waited. Hours. Days. Then finally the door opened, and he stood there unchanged, but his eyes were darker now, the colour of ink. You read too far, he said. I held out the book. Take it back. He shook his head. It's yours now. It knows you. He didn't speak again until we reached the back of the library, where the shelves grew crooked and the air turned cold. The books here were older, bound in stone, sealed with wax. He gestured to a door I hadn't seen before. It was carved from what appeared to be bone, veined with silver, and opened without touch. Beyond it lay a chamber of glass jars, maybe thousands, each filled with ash, each labelled with sigils. This is the archive, he said. Not of knowledge, of grief. I asked him why. Why ashes? Why books? Why me? He walked to a jar near the centre. Its label was faded. The ash inside shimmered faintly, like a memory refusing to die. I was not the first, he said. There have been many archivists, each chosen, each bound, each consumed. He removed his glove, and beneath it, his hand was ink. Not stained with it, but made of it. The veins pulsed like script, and the skin shimmered like parchment. The ink is memory, he said, distilled from grief. It writes the books, it feeds on truth, and it must be contained. He led me to a mirror at the far end of the chamber. It was cracked, rimmed in thistles, and reflected nothing. Not me, not him. Just the book. The mirror shows what the archive hides, he said. What the books cannot hold. What the ashes cannot silence. I asked him what he meant, and he reached out and touched the glass, and it rippled beneath his fingers. I saw a child, but not my brother. Someone older, deeper in time. He was surrounded by books that screamed. That was me, he said, before the ink, before the silence. He turned towards me. The archivist is not chosen, they are remembered. When the archive grows too full, it must be emptied, but not destroyed. Passed on. I felt the book pulse in my coat. The sigil burned against my chest. You brought potent grief, he said. It remembers you. It wants you. I stepped backwards. I didn't ask for this. He nodded in understanding. None do. But the archive must remain, or the ink will spread. He handed me an iron key, small, black, and cold. If you return, he said, you will not leave. If you stay, you will forget. If you burn the book, it will burn you. I asked what choice I had. He looked at me with eyes like fading script. You already made it when you traded ashes for truth. I returned to the library in the middle of a storm. The gates were open, the ivy had grown thicker still, grey, pulsing, veined with ink. The symbols on the door had changed again. They looked like my handwriting now. Inside, the shelves had moved. The books whispered to each other, and the air smelled of ash and rot. The sigil in my coat had dissolved, and my skin bore its mark instead, etched into my chest like a brand. I found the archivist in the chamber of jars. He was kneeling. His coat was gone. His body was ink, not stained but transformed. Script flowed across his skin, looping and curling like vines, and his eyes were blank pages. It's almost time, he said. I threw the book at his feet. Take it. I don't want it. He didn't move. It's not yours to give now. It is you. I turned to leave, but the door I had just passed through was gone. The shelves closed in, jars rattling in anger. One shattered, Ash spilled across the floor, forming words. She fed it names. I ran as far and fast as I could, contained within the library. It shifting at my every move. The books opened themselves, pages flapped like wings. Ink splashed across the walls, forming mirrors. Each one showed my brother. Each one showed me. And each one showed something behind us both. I reached the desk. The scale was gone, the quill was broken, and the jar of ash was full again. My brother's name etched into the glass. But beneath it, another name. Mine. The ink surged from the book, wrapping around my arms, my throat, my eyes. I saw the final page. It was blank. It was waiting. The archivist stood behind me, or beside me, or inside me. I just couldn't tell. You read too far, and now you must write. My hands moved without command. The ink flowed from my veins. I wrote my brother's death. I wrote my own. I wrote the thing in the mirror, and it smiled. And then a whisper. She remembers. The book slammed closed. The sigil burned away, and the jars fell silent. And there I stood. My coat was velvet, my eyes were pale, and my hands were stained with ink that never dried. The archivist was gone. I was alone. And the door creaked open, and a child stood before me holding an urn. I heard you take trades, she said. I nodded. What remains? And there the tale ends for now, but the echoes will always remain. If you've enjoyed your stay here in my domain, leave your mark. A review, a whisper, a 5-star sigil. Until next time, wanderers, I've been Fauna Blakewell, and you've been changed forever.